Hey guys, Sarah here. So today I'm going to be talking about a corn snake morph that nobody asked for, but I have gotten a lot of sort of passive questions about it over a long period of time. I figure about once a month or so I have to answer a question about this morph, so I thought I would go ahead and make a video about it since it's fresh on my mind, and I've just recently done the research on it, so I might as well pass it on to you guys while it's in my brain. Before I start though, I do want to say if you guys like this art behind me, this was done by someone named Nathaniel Patrick. I will put his email in the description below if you would like to contact him and get some awesome custom snake art. And also if you are an artist that does snake art, I would love to be able to feature your art back here if that is something you would like. So just send me an email if that's something that you want to do. We can work something out where I will feature you and talk about you. I know that I've mentioned his stuff before, but I really do really like his style and everything, so if you guys are looking for some custom art, go check him out. And like I said, if you're an artist that would like to be featured back here, just let me know and we will work something out. Also, I do have some like merch on my website. I know a lot of people don't love when other people talk about their merch, so I'm not going to talk about it very long, but I have merch and books, and I will also be writing a third corn snake book. I'm actually in the middle of writing it. Right now I'm like, I don't know, a dozen pages in or something of just text only, so that's not including photos, which I will also need to add. So it's gonna actually end up being a nice book. I'm not gonna get into detail about that right now, but I just thought I'd mention it to you guys. That's what's going on. So the mystery morph of the day is actually Hurricane Motley, specifically Hurricane. And the reason I'm talking about this, like I said, is because at least once a month I get someone asking the difference between a regular Motley and a Hurricane Motley, or the difference between a Hurricane Motley and like an Okati Motley. So I figured, since it is a very kind of confusing topic for a lot of people, I would go ahead and do that video for you guys, especially since I just answered that question for someone today. I figured, why not go ahead and answer it for everybody, even though you didn't ask. So I am going to briefly go over the history of this, but I know I normally have like a long section of like the history of whatever morph, but the thing is, there's not a whole lot to tell you about the history, because Hurricane Motley has been around for so long that it's not something that just has like people don't talk about it. I don't exactly know when it became a morph. I mean, Motley obviously has been around for a long time, but Hurricane specifically, it's been at least since the year 2000, but obviously it's been since before that, because in Kathy Love's book that was published, I believe in 2000, I have it right here, you know, within reach. So in the Corn Snake Manual, which is what I have, she does talk about it all the way in the back here, and all the way in the back. I know normally I don't put the thing up on the screen for you guys like this, but I am going to do that here because I'm not sure if I can actually find this photo anywhere else. And yeah, it is a Hurricane Motley, but anybody who looks at the face of that snake is going to know that it's got some king snake in it. So yes, most of the photos that I'll be showing you guys will actually be up on the screen, but there's a good chance that I'm not going to be able to just find this photo. I have also gone through and checked the SERP widgets, who is Charles Pritzel, for those of you who don't know. He has written a lot of corn snake morph guides, but they stopped being updated a while ago, which is kind of the reason why I started mine. And I believe the last time that he published one was in 2011. So the last time he published was 10 years ago, and there's obviously a lot of things that we've learned since then, but even his earliest book was later than Kathy Love's book, and obviously this is in Kathy Love's book. I also tried looking at the cornsnakes.com forums, and the oldest in there is from 2002 or 2004. I think it was 2002. Yep, I'm looking at it. It's 2002. And so obviously Hurricane Motley was a thing even before that because of Kathy Love's book. So I'm not entirely sure when the term hurricane actually came up, and I don't really want to focus on the history too much since we don't really have a whole lot of history on it. I imagine hurricane has been around for almost as long as Motley itself has been around. So that's just sort of mentioning it. I do want to mention also, I'm going to be using the term frosted a lot in this video. And I want everyone to understand that when I say frosted, I am not talking about the hybrid known as frosted, like the frosted corn snake. There are a lot of hybrid names out there. So there's the root beer corn snake, which is the normal version of the corn and emeryi or Great Plains rat snake hybrid. There's the term jungle corn snake, which is the term that we use for a king snake and a corn snake hybrid. And frosted is one of those terms that's somewhat outdated. I don't ever hear anybody use it. I haven't heard anybody use it for about 10 years, I want to say, maybe a slightly less than that, 7-8 years, as like the hybrid term. I haven't heard that hybrid term really used. I believe that it was corn snake and gray rat snake cross. I think it was also much more common when the ultra gene started becoming more popular, because it was believed that, and still is believed, I think, that the ultra gene mutation came over from gray rat snakes or had something to do with a hybrid breeding with those or something like that. I'm not going to go over the details of how ultra became a weird morph. I just want to mention to you guys that I will be using the term frosted, and what I actually mean is the whiting out of the saddles of a corn snake. So a lot of corn snakes are going to get this, I say get it, they're born with it. Sometimes it's not as obvious when they're young. It'll be more obvious when they're older and all their colors come in, but they do have it from birth, a sort of whiting out of the saddles, where that usually starts in the center of the saddle and would kind of move its way out depending on how extreme the frosting is. So when I'm talking about frosting or frosted, I am talking about this whiting out of the saddles that, you know, a saddle, I'll try to put up pictures for you guys. So like a normal that has very frosted saddles is going to have your normal, maybe like standard tan or orange ground color, and then maybe some black borders, like a normal normally has. But then instead of having just like dark red saddle blotches, it'll be like whited out. It'll be like maybe a little bit in the center or maybe just a little bit on the sides. You'll see it almost looks like, it just looks like there's no color there, and, you know, for no particular reason. And the higher the expression of the frosting, the less red will actually be in the saddles. And it'll be different for aneries, obviously, because aneries are not red. Aneries lack red. So a frosted anery with this frosting that I'm talking about will have, you know, your obviously white ground color, and then it'll have, instead of like purely black or gray saddles like they normally have, there will be like a patch in the middle, maybe working its way toward the ground color, where there is no color. It is whited out, it is frosted out. So that's what the frosting is. I know I spent a lot of time explaining it, and I'm hoping that the images that I put up on the screen helped you guys kind of understand what I'm talking about. So that will help you kind of understand where I'm heading with hurricane. So Hurricane Motleys are often confused for Okati Motleys. And I want to kind of present this to you right now. And I know it's kind of heartbreaking probably for a lot of people, but Okati Motley doesn't really exist. Don Soderbergh has tried for years and years and years, and he's been doing this a lot longer than I have, to breed Motley into Okati lines. And really, Motley just does not allow for super thick borders. You can breed a Motley into an extreme Okati line for generations, and it just doesn't bring that thick border out. There are obviously some Motleys where the border is a little bit more pronounced, but as far as being like a nice Okati looking, like Okati phase Motley, you're not going to get that. So assuming that that doesn't exist, a lot of people who don't know that it doesn't exist will attribute the hurricaning, actually they'll think it's an Okati Motley instead. And you will only find that in the morphs that don't have red for the most part. Nobody's gonna look at a frosted or, you know, a Hurricane Motley that's just a regular Motley, or an Ultramel Hurricane Motley, or an Amel Hurricane Motley, nobody's going to look at these red morphs and say, oh, well, that's an Okati Motley. Because what they're expecting, when they think of like Okati, the thick banding, they're expecting black. So, or maybe white if you're talking about like an Amel version. But that's not what you get when you have Hurricane. You only get that with the sort of darker colored morphs. So ghosts, lavenders, aneries. If you have those as Hurricane Motleys, they are often mistaken for Okati Motleys because it's actually a dark band around the spots instead of a light colored band, which it would be with most everything else. So if you are looking at a ghost hurricane, what you are actually seeing is not the dark like hurricaning around the actual spots, is only the frosting out of the saddles. If you understand how sort of the Motley G mutation works, what it actually does is it pulls the edges of the saddles together to create a ground color spot. So so let's just say you're looking at a regular Motley, just a normal Motley. If you put that up against, up next to a normal, you will notice that the spots are light colored, like what a ground color would be on a normal, and the rest of it is darker colored, like you would see on the saddles of a normal. So the saddles edges are what get pulled together to create what appears to be spots. And I think a lot of people sort of get it backwards in their head as to how these mutations actually function. It's easy to do. So the Motley mutation does not create spots on the snake. What the Motley mutation does is it pulls the saddle, the edges of the saddles together. And it appears that it creates light colored spots. However, it's actually, we think of Motley as spotted, but that's only because that's what our brains notice. But really what Motley is just connected saddles that are leaving a gap in between that just happen to be in the shape of a circle. And that's what we see as Motley. So when you breed a frosted line into a Motley line like that, those frosted saddle edges get pulled together and they create the sort of hurricane look. The frosting is in the saddle color and it creates a like sort of just blank space, no color in the middle of the saddle. And then all of that other color, and again, so hurricane is like frosting is another thing similar to the Motley that is easy to think of backwards. So it doesn't move the saddle color towards the center or anything. It just doesn't develop color in the middle of the saddles. So, I mean, not the center, but the edges. So it doesn't move the color toward the edges. It doesn't move the color toward the spots. That color was always going to be there anyway. What it does is it removes color from the center. But since it creates the look of those hurricane spots, that's what we focus on. And instead of focusing on the actual cause, which is simply a lack of color in the center of what would have been the saddle. So I hope that at least cleared up how hurricane Motleys come to be. And I hope that some of these examples helped you kind of see, put those, I would say put 2 and 2 together. We're really putting like 4 and 4 together to sort of, sort everything out. So when you think of Motley, think that it is bringing the edges of the saddles together, not creating spots. When you think of frosted, think that it is removing color from the center, not focusing color on the edges. And then when you put the 2 of them together, you have this hurricane look that is the color that would have been there anyway, just is only showing up along where the spots are. So now that we move on from that, I want to sort of bring up just some photos of other examples that people have shown so that you guys can see what this looks like in different colored mutations. I'm not going to show every single mutation that there is. There are hundreds of mutations, and I'm not going to be able to put all of that in one video, but I want to show you some of the more common ones. So I'm going to start with the most common. I'm going to start with the most simple, not the most common. We're going to start with normal Motley, hurricane Motleys. We're just going to start with normal hurricane Motleys. A normal hurricane Motley is going to have like a tan ground color, and it's going to have red surrounding its spots, and then obviously your frosted white in the middle. The next one that is the most common is your Anery hurricane Motleys. Anery hurricane Motleys are probably the most common because they just stand out. The hurricane is so much more like bright almost. So a lot of people love the Anery hurricane Motleys. And Anery hurricane Motley is going to have the white spot, obviously, and then it's going to have the normal dark Anery saddle color around that spot, and then it's going to have a white or a really light gray in between. And it's the same thing with a ghost. Ghost is probably one of the next most common ones that we see. You just add hypo into that. And so instead of having the like black or really dark gray, you have a slightly lighter gray instead. And then lavender is another one that's more common than I expected. When I was looking up photos of hurricane Motleys to share with you guys, there were actually a lot of lavenders that showed up. So lavender is a somewhat common one that also ends up having a lot of people breed hurricane into their lines for that. And a couple of other ones. I think that the AML one is actually really important to show you guys because a lot of people, when they think of an Anery hurricane Motley, like I think the reason that it's important is because a reverse Okati obviously has very thick white borders. So this is the best way for me to show you that a hurricane is different from an Okati, because an AML hurricane doesn't have really thick white around the spots. It actually has thicker like red and orange around the spots, and then white on the outside of those, sort of in between the spots where the saddles would be. So I think that AML is a really important one, and then there's also Ultramel, which is going to look very similar. And there's other ones that I'll put up on the screen. That is about all I have for hurricane Motleys for this episode. It is a little bit shorter. I'm trying to sort of shorten up a lot of the episodes, especially ones where we don't really have a lot of the history and background. So I'm really hoping you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, like and share with a group or someone that you think might benefit from it, because that really helps me. Comment down below the morphs that you would like to know about the most, and anything in this video that may still be confusing to you. And I will probably answer some of the like more straightforward questions in a video in the future. And if there's any morphs that you comment down below that you really want to see, I will try to make a video on that in the future. So thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.